You need to try the brand new portable Tornado wind turbine from Soa Labs. The turbine is on sale at an early bird price of €99, 47% lower than the retail price. You can find more information at igg.me/AT/tornado-turbine or follow the link in the episode description. Welcome to Sunday Night Mystery, where we delve into the chilling tales of unsolved crimes and mysteries that have haunted communities for decades. I'm Brett, and tonight we're in the upmarket area of Sneyd Park in Bristol. It was the summer of 1976 when the tranquility of Sneyd Park was shattered by a brutal crime that would leave a family destroyed and a community in fear. Sneyd Park has been considered a very affluent area for many years. It's home to many wealthy individuals who enjoy the quiet, upmarket community. However, nurse and mother of one, Susan Donoghue, was in her bed when a vicious attacker, armed with a truncheon, broke into her home. Susan was sexually assaulted and killed by an intruder, armed with a truncheon, at her home on August 5th, 1976. The assailant struck Susan, knocking her unconscious before subjecting her to a horrifying assault. Susan had been unwell and had taken the night off from work when she was attacked in bed as she slept. Ms. Donoghue was hit 7 times with a truncheon, which was left behind along with a pair of bloodstained gloves and a tobacco tin. The summer of 1976 was one of the warmest on record, and the murder shocked Bristol. But despite an extensive investigation, the killer was never caught. The body of the 44-year-old, who was a night sister at Brentry Hospital, was discovered in her basement flat in Sneyd Park. When Susan's fiancé returned home, he discovered a blood-stained body, a sight that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Susan was one of 13 children. She was born in 1932 in Ireland's County Tyrone. She attended the Loreto Grammar School in Omagh, where her ambition throughout her school days had been to work in nursing. Susan trained as a nurse in Belfast, working there before moving to the mainland in a hospital in the Kent area. In the 1950s, Susan married Cornelius Donoghue, and the couple moved to the Channel Islands, settling in Jersey. In 1958, Susan and Cornelius had a son, calling him John. Sadly, the marriage broke down in the mid-1960s. Susan then relocated to Bristol, reuniting with 3 of her brothers. Finding employment as a night sister at the psychiatric hospital in Brentry, which is North Bristol, Susan built a new life for herself. She met her partner, Dennis Foote, who was a carpenter working at the same hospital as Susan, teaching carpentry to some of the patients. It's been reported the couple were extremely happy. At the time of Susan's death, they were engaged and hoping to marry around Christmas of 1976. Dennis was renovating his house, ready for them both to move in, and his younger brother had recently moved out to pave the way for the couple living together. Everything seemed to be working out for Susan, until that fateful summer's day. August the 5th should have been another ordinary day for Susan. She would have been on a night shift at Brentry Hospital that evening, but felt unwell, so telephoned the hospital to let them know that she wouldn't be there. Suffering with a heavy cold, Susan settled down, trying to sleep it off in the heat of that August evening. When Dennis arrived at Brentry Hospital for work early in the morning of the 5th of August, he was told that Susan hadn't been to work the night before, as she was unwell. In the days before mobile phones and social media, communication was a very different process. Many people didn't have something as basic as a telephone in their home, so as Dennis hadn't heard from Susan, he decided to visit her flat to make sure she was okay. What Dennis discovered when he arrived at 7:15 on that summer morning led to him having to be heavily sedated the next day. It left his life in ruins. Dennis walked into Susan's ground floor flat and discovered her body lying in her bed. She was clearly dead, having been brutally battered to death. The room was heavily bloodstained. Shaken and distraught, Dennis immediately called the police. A team of detectives led by Detective Superintendent John Robinson of Avon and Somerset Police arrived to set up an incident room and launched immediate house-to-house inquiries. Surmising that Susan's killer must have been heavily bloodstained due to the frenzied attack, a team of police searched the area surrounding the house and nearby streets and gardens for any blood-stained clothing that the killer may have discarded whilst fleeing from the scene. But nothing was found. Home Office pathologist Dr. Bill Kennard was summoned from Salisbury to examine the body. From the initial appearance of the scene of the crime, it appeared that Susan had been attacked as she slept, and that the killer had battered her to death with a heavy, blunt instrument. There was evidence of the room having been ransacked, although it was unclear exactly what, if anything, had been taken. Also found at the scene were a heavily bloodstained pair of man's driving gloves, a tobacco box, and a footprint on the inside windowsill of the adjacent room to where Susan was found. Forensic examination of the items found at the scene later confirmed that the blood covering them had come from Susan, and a later post-mortem also concluded that Susan had been sexually assaulted, either before or after the attack. A blood-stained police truncheon was found at the scene, later confirmed to have been the murder weapon. The post-mortem determined that Susan's killer had struck her over the head at least 7 times. Despite the passage of time, the killer remained elusive, leaving a family desperate for justice and a community knowing that a killer is still out there amongst them. Hope was rekindled when, on the 40th anniversary of Susan's murder, Detective Chief Inspector Julie McKay announced a breakthrough. Thanks to advancements in DNA technology, investigators now had a full DNA profile of the killer. This vital clue breathed new life into the investigation, offering a glimmer of hope to Susan's family after decades of uncertainty. Susan's brother, Seamus McGeary, spoke of the family's enduring quest for justice, recalling the pain of losing his sister and the toll it took on their entire family. With renewed determination, detectives continued their relentless pursuit of the truth, leaving no stone unturned in their search for answers. The investigation uncovered a hallmark silver bracelet believed to belong to Susan, as well as crucial evidence linking the killer to the scene of the crime. Although, despite exhaustive efforts, the case remained unsolved, leaving detectives with one plea: for anyone with any information to come forward and help bring closure to Susan's loved ones. As we consider the harrowing details of Susan Donoghue's tragic death, the search continues. But what is actually known about the killer? We know he's male, working alone. It's unlikely to have been his first or his last crime, so the investigation suggests someone who's offended before. Detectives advise this being a level of crime that is built up to. An offender generally doesn't set out to commit a brutal sex murder and then manage to escape detection for 50 years as his first offence. He is likely to have a background as a housebreaker. He came prepared to commit a crime and showed some level of forensic awareness as he wore gloves. He was prepared to and did use extreme violence, so we would expect the offender to have come to the attention of police before for violent offences. This killer was in control of the situation, was able to rape and murder without disturbing any neighbours, and managed both access and exit quietly and without leaving any traces. Even the gloves, although left at the scene, were placed carefully onto a chair, yet there are traces of this crime being disorganised. He left the gloves, the murder weapon, tobacco, a footprint, and semen at the scene. It is possible that the offender had killed before. There's a similar murder that occurred in Nottingham just 3 weeks before Susan's. Joan Mashik was 48 years old, living alone in a bedsit in Douglas Road in the Lenton district of Nottingham. Joan had been battered to death with a heavy blunt instrument, but had not been sexually assaulted. And it is possible that the offender killed again after Susan's murder, though police have never officially linked any other crimes. There was nothing found to suggest that Susan was deliberately targeted as a victim. Speaking in 1976, Detective Superintendent John Robinson said his favourite theory was perhaps we've got a petty housebreaker. There's evidence that entry was effected through the window, and there's evidence of ransacking in a bedroom. Anyone going through the bedroom door would think that he was in the lounge because from the doorway he would have seen a 3-piece suite. He could not have been blamed for thinking that the room was unoccupied, when if Mrs. Donoghue woke up, probably her first reaction was that he was her boyfriend. Due to the passage of time since Susan's murder, there exists the very real possibility that the offender himself is now dead. Sadly, this seems likely. He certainly hasn't been arrested for any crime since the inception of the National DNA Database, and offenders of this magnitude will more than likely have offended again. But this may not be the case. He may be infirm and in hospital, or may now live abroad if still alive. But detectives do today have the crucial evidence of his full DNA profile. The cold case team are fully committed and will not give up on finding the identity of Susan's killer. There exists the very real possibility that a match may be entered upon the National DNA Database maybe today, tomorrow, perhaps the day after, and he will be found when the DNA profile is next reviewed. Although it may ultimately prove too late to bring Susan's killer to punishment for his crime, but if his identity is known, then perhaps Susan's family can get some level of closure after so many years. Passage of time may have dimmed the memories of some, but for Susan's family, the pain of loss remains as raw as ever. Tonight we remember Susan Donoghue, a beloved nurse and a mother whose life was taken far too soon. and we renew a commitment to seek justice in her name. The killer must be aware, due to advances in forensic science, Avon and Somerset Police are a crucial step closer, bringing the killer to justice. It takes just one match with any family member to trace directly to the evil killer who will spend the rest of his life in prison, everyone knowing what he did on that night. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Sunday Night Mystery as we reflect on the tragedy that befell Susan Donoghue. Let's remember, a life with such a positive future was taken away with such cruelty and violence. For in the darkest of nights, it's only the light of hope that can guide us forward towards a future where justice prevails and shadows fade away. As we reflect on the haunting case, we're reminded of the importance of never giving up hope and seeking justice for those who can no longer speak for themselves. Join us next time for another episode of Sunday Night Mystery and journey once again into mysteries of the night where the ever-evolving science of DNA might just hold answers that bring secrets to light. Although, in the spine-tingling realm of Sunday Night Mystery, some enigmas defy resolution, leaving us to simply ponder secrets of the past. Until next week, stay safe, and remember, the truth may be hidden, but as long as we keep the investigation alive, it's never truly lost. I'm Brett, and I'll see you next time on Sunday Night Mystery. For now, stay curious, stay vigilant, and be sure to guard yourself against the darkness that surrounds us all. I'll see you next week on Sunday Night Mystery. You need to try the brand new portable Tornado wind turbine from Solar Labs. You can set it up anywhere to capture wind power and turn it instantly into electricity. The energy is stored in the built-in 12,000 milliamp battery, allowing Tornado turbine to be used as a power bank. Tornado turbines are irreplaceable for long journeys, trips and off-grid living. The large capacity, the built-in battery and 3 USB charging ports allow users to charge several devices simultaneously. The turbine is on sale at an early bird price of €99, 47% lower than the retail price. You can find more information at igg.me/at/tornado-turbine or follow the link in the episode description.